Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237, coming at you with another 80s slasher film. And this one's been a long time coming. You're probably wondering when I was going to get to this one, because this is a big one. This is a huge 80s slasher film. Nightmare on Elm Street. Possibly the most iconic slasher series, the most iconic slasher villain, Freddy Krueger, probably the most iconic horror villain of the decade. And I mean, what can I say about Nightmare on Elm Street that hasn't been said already? One, I like this font. I wish that font was on all of them. Eventually, I'm going to review the whole series, all the sequels. I have them all part of this red clip box set. But yeah, I grew up with Elm Street. First one I saw was this one. It was on cable. I got this whole DVD set Christmas when I was in 6th grade. I will say right off the bat, as a whole, Nightmare on Elm Street, it's not my favorite series. It's probably one of my least favorite of the big four, Jason, Freddy, Michael, Leatherface. I would say Chainsaw Massacre has the worst sequels, but I love the original so much that it gets a bunch of extra points. This one, I mean, I love the first three. I even like 2, which a lot of people don't. 4 I do like. It's not one of my favorites. 5 I think sucks. 6 is beyond terrible. New Nightmare I like. It's clever. It's Wes Craven clever, which is a whole other realm. Then of course Freddy vs. Jason and the remake. But so yeah, by 1984, this was when the slasher genre was really going down. I mean, it's sort of been exhausted. Everyone was tired of it. They had seen everything. But before they started becoming self-parodies, there was one last great idea, and that was Nightmare on Elm Street. Because it is a typical slasher film. You have, teens being killed. It's a body count film. You have a final girl. You have a killer, with a backstory. He has sort of a themed look or a costume that you can definitely remember. But it's Wes Craven, so there's just that other layer of something else going on. And this is my first Wes Craven review for this channel. It's not my favorite film by his. It might be. I'd have to think about it more. But, it was just that little extra boost that the genre needed. And that was originality. Because that was the main thing. Everything had been done before. And everybody knows the story. Freddy Krueger is this dream demon, for lack of better terms, where if you fall asleep, he kills you in your dreams. So the only way you can survive is to stay awake. But you can only do that for so long. The idea, because Wes Craven is very good at reading old stories or new stories and coming up with a fictionalized version of it. He had read this story about this kid who was terrified to go to sleep. He was terrified of his nightmares. His family finally made him go to sleep, and he started screaming and thrashing. And when they got to his room, he was dead. And they found stay-awake pills and coffee machine and stuff. And he told a story about this old man that scared him as a boy who had like a Freddy hat and a trench coat. You watch any review of Wes Craven, he tells the story. It's scary when he tells it. That's why I didn't tell it. Originally, he was going to be a child molester, but I guess at that point in the 80s, there was this big epidemic of children being molested, so he didn't think it was a good idea. But I mean, the story's simple. It's convoluted because his dreams and staying awake and stuff like that. Well, convoluted is not the right word. But it's simple because you have this group of friends headed by Nancy, which I cannot remember her last name. Thompson. Nancy Thompson, played by Heather Langenkamp, one of the biggest scream queens in the 80s. Her boyfriend is Johnny Depp. This movie's known for being Johnny Depp's first film. Her best friend Tina and her boyfriend Rod. And they're being killed off one by one. And Nancy starts, she's the first to realize it's your dreams. It's this weird guy in this suit, burnt skin. He has knives on his fingers. One of the most iconic slasher weapons. Freddy's glove. So she tries to stay awake. Her mother takes her to a sleep studies, a shrink, and she just will not go to sleep. And then she realizes she can pull stuff out of her dreams, and she's gonna stop Freddy. This is a final girl who is a badass. I mean, most final girls just work with what they have by the end of the movie. She sets up booby traps. She's like, come on, Freddy, come and get me. She gets shit done. And of course, Freddy is played by Robert Englund, who I've always considered Robert Englund to be like the Vincent Price of a modern horror. Because of course he played Freddy throughout the 80s and 90s, but especially in the 2000s, he just pops up cameos or whatever. He's kind of like Vincent Price. Very recognizable. So yeah, I don't need to get into the plot for this because everybody knows it, but this is my favorite of the series because just to me, this one is the most about showing someone staying awake. It was part 2 was more about him using someone as like a proxy, an extension of himself. 3, you had the Dream Warriors, and it was the Dream Masters. It got much bigger. This one, I just like the idea of this girl who she figures out she has to stay awake, and they do it very well. She gets like I don't know why you can see that, but like a gray stripe in her hair from, I'm guessing, the stress or being scared. But also, something that the remake missed the point on was all the kills are in the dream world. Dreams. Sky's the limit for imagination. And I know in the sequels, they sort of played with set designs and stuff to make it more surreal. This was on, like, a very limited budget. I mean, I think the guys at New Line, like Robert Shaye, they dished out their own money because they wanted it made. In fact, because of this film's success, New Line has been called the house that Freddy built because this was their first major film. But yeah, Heather Langenkamp played Nancy very well. She's one of the best final girls of the 80s. You see her mom kind of go from this proper woman to being, just this out of it alcoholic because she's stressed out. John Saxon plays her sort of estranged father who's a cop. John Saxon's great. He's a lot of things I've seen him in. He plays a cop or an authority figure. He always does it very well. It was really cool seeing a young Johnny Depp before he became Johnny Depp. But the dreams in this, even though they couldn't really play with set designs, it was done best in this film. In fact, just to show you how CGI fucks everything up, this is one of the most memorable scenes. Nancy's sleeping, and you see like his hand and his head sort of like in the wall. And then she wakes up and he goes back. This is 1984. The remake was in 2010, and it looks like a pile of ass. The CGI. But my favorite dream sequence would be Tina's when she dies. The first time we see Freddy. First time we see him, he's got those long arms. And, there's this shot where he's running behind her. The camera sort of, when she gets in front of the camera, it goes like this, and he's standing there. As a kid, I thought the scariest part was when she gets back to the house, and there's like this tree that's like this thick, and he like pops out from behind it. I don't know why. I always thought that was creepy. He like cuts his fingers off, and there's green blood. He's mostly in the shadows, which I also like. The makeup is some of the best in this one. That part where he's on top of her, she peels his face off, and it's like a bloody skeleton laughing at her. Just that whole dream sequence, it's like that is what a nightmare would look like. Mainly because my dreams are always very realistic. Then, of course, you get Johnny Depp's death, which, if you're a bloodhound like me, you gotta love it. You don't get to see what Freddy does to him. He's sleeping in a bed, and he gets sucked in, like, this way. And then just a tsunami of blood. This geyser of blood coming out of the bed. Their friend Rod gets pinned for Tina's death. You get this. He falls asleep, and they see it happen where the sheet goes around his neck and hangs him. They definitely tweaked Robert Englund's voice a bit on this, because it's very deep and demonic, but this is before wisecracking Freddy, which is good. I'm not a big fan of the one-liner wisecracking Freddy. I'm just not. Also, when Nancy has her dream in the one in the school is one of my favorites too, because that's really she falls asleep in English. Like she sees Tina in like a body bag, so she follows it, and she sees it's this wide shot down the hallway. Tina's laying there, but then you just see her legs go up and get dragged by this invisible force, and her hand just kind of flops out of the bag. Just great imagery like that. That's eerie. The soundtrack isn't. When it does pick up, like when Freddy's chasing Tina, it's like this really cool, almost like rock sounding beat. It's not 80s poppy sounding music, but it's also just this ominous sound. It's like when the body of Tina's being dragged down the hallway. But the main theme, or something like that. And of course, the song 1-2, Freddy's Coming for You, with the girls playing jump rope. A lot of people have problems with the ending, because I know they went through 3 endings, and everybody loved or hated all 3 of them. So they just put them all in there. As a kid, I thought that shot of the mom getting ripped through that little window with the door was scary as hell. I don't really mind the ending, because I know they didn't want to do a sequel, but of course they had to, because this one was very successful. Now, I've said Friday the 13th and Halloween I wish stayed by themselves. Like, I wish Friday the 13th had stayed that, and then Friday the 13th Part 2, being called something else, was Jason series. Separate them. Halloween, even though I love Halloween 2, the original, not Rob Zombie's, I would much rather Halloween have been its own movie, standalone forever. This movie I can kind of see and accept that it was a series, even though some of them were pretty bad. Mainly because, it's a dream world, it's very imaginative and creative. I can see why they made a bunch of these. And I'm okay with that. Because I don't love Nightmare on Elm Street as much as Halloween or Friday the 13th. Don't get me wrong, I think it's an awesome movie. It's a very imaginative slasher. But I don't love it as much as those ones. Yeah, I thought this review was going to be much longer because Friday the 13th and Halloween Chainsaw Massacre was. But this one seems to be the most popular. I mean, everybody knows Michael and Jason and Leatherface, but I think everybody everybody really knows Elm Street because Freddy Krueger is such an icon. I like this one's my favorite because Freddy's mostly in the shadows, like that. Which I like that dream sequence too. He lifts up his shirt, cuts himself with a bunch of maggots. That's awesome. Also, the music in that scene, that beat, just I should just pop this in just to listen to that music. But yeah, just even the effects. This is a movie that didn't have to be over the top gory or bloody because there's just so much visually. They did such a good job at making it feel like a nightmare. Especially Nancy's English class hallway dream and the one where Tina dies when we first see Freddy. Also, just that image, you know, when Rod wakes up and he just sees Tina like levitating and just sliding up the wall and the ceiling, then she finally gets slashed. I love that sound when she just finally drops. You just hear like the like there's so much blood it just sounds like a wave. Johnny Depp's fun in this too. It's just funny seeing him in his first movie because he's like the biggest actor. Also, one of my favorite images is when Nancy's in the tub. The camera's down at like the foot of the tub and you just see his glove come out of the water. Because it's like this, right when her mom knocks on the door, it's like this perfect retract. And I like the image when she finally gets pulled under, and you just see like this little opening, like that, like up here, like that's the tub. It's all like this dark sea that she's in underneath. Very creepy. But yeah, very imaginative. This was just that extra little boost the slasher genre needed to kind of stay afloat. Even though after this, it was pretty much just sequels. You didn't really get any other super original, very memorable slashers after this. Pretty much after this, it was Freddy, Michael, or Jason with some slashers here and there. But, if Wes Craven's going to do a slasher, I can definitely see it being this. Just that extra little bit of creativity. Because, may he rest in peace. I miss Wes Craven. I'm not the fan of all of his movies, but he was such a huge part of the horror genre, and he will be missed. Yeah, this probably wasn't as in-depth as I planned originally, but it's hard to review a movie that's so iconic. But yeah, I love the images. I love the way, even with their small budget, how they made the dream sequences feel like a dream and feel like a nightmare. Nancy's one of the best final girls. She sets things up and gets shit done. Freddy, he's a little in the shadows and kind of toned down compared to the sequels, but I think this one is the best. This one's the scariest. There was no cheesy comedy in it. The nightmare sequences were scary. They weren't cheesy. Just, I always think of that image of Tina in the bloody body bag, legs getting lifted up and dragged by that invisible force. Freddy, probably. So yeah, for Room 237, Nightmare on Elm Street, undeniable classic, best one of the series. Great movie. Thank you.